All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. Due to technical difficulties, I am again hosting the Mixed Mental Arts movie chat that we're going to do on Robocop 2, of course, the sequel to Robocop, the sort of satire about a man who becomes a cyborg and is controlled by a corporation and fights crime and whatnot. And this is a sequel to that, directed by a different director. And yeah, we'll get into it. And of course, the Woke Centrist, aka Dusty Cubes, aka Dustin Cubit, is here. And so yeah, we can let's just as I am hosting this on my channel, we'll pretend that it's a mixed mental arts chat, and you can basically do most of the hosting there.
All right, so we're going to be talking about Robocop 2. It came out 3 years after Robocop 1. It stars most of the main characters, well, at least the good guys from the first movie, and the main guy from the corporate board actually takes a bigger role in this movie.
I forgot
which is
that
weird
I was
because
the same guy.
Isn't it the same guy?
I'm not sure.
Or am I'm pretty sure that OCP guy is like the old dude from the first one.
Okay, I'm not sure.
I could be wrong. I thought it was the same guy because he was the CEO of OCP, and I don't think they actually changed anything about that.
Maybe all old white guys look the same to me. Maybe I'm racist.
Well, I could look into it and see if it's the same guy.
I'm gonna try to find that here. What would I even look up? Robocop 2.
I would just go to Robocop 2, and then when you see the name of the guy, you just click on his name and see if he was in Robocop 1.
Like the
I'm gonna go to IMDb. That's the best place to go for seeing the cast information. And you would just click on, let's see, what is his name? I think Dan O'Hurley. And in this movie, he's just called Old Man. Yeah, is that what you found?
Oh,
so Dan O'Hurley, he's actually, yeah, he is the same guy from the first movie.
Oh, okay.
And I guess he just turned completely evil for the second movie.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't really evil in the first one. He's kind of like a neutral entity.
So he wasn't. Was he like the main older guy in the first one?
Yeah, because remember in the first one, Dick Jones takes him hostage, and then he gets fired by the old guy, and that's when Robocop shoots him.
Right.
So yeah, it's the same old dude. I wouldn't say that the old dude is evil. He's kind of neutral, but he lets his underlings get away with some shit. And then I think he actually plots to like blame that Fax, her name is, I think, the one who comes up with the idea of getting criminals for the Robocop project.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. That's when like he goes full evil. Like, we're gonna blame everything on her.
Yeah, basically, and a bunch of people die. But yeah, let's get into it. So the director is different. I will tell you though, the director is quite famous. He is the director for the second Star Wars movie.
Oh.
Shoot. Let me see if I can find his name. That's pretty important.
I forgot that George Lucas didn't direct all of the first 6 Star Wars movies. Which ones did he direct?
He didn't. I think he did the first one, and he did some of the prequels. The ones from what I heard is he's not a very good director, and what I mean director is he's not a perfectionist like some are. And you saw like some of the acting and some of the scenes in the sequels. There were some pretty bad acted scenes there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who to really blame that on, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, oh yeah. So the movie was directed by Irvin Kershner, and this was actually his last directed movie. He didn't direct any other movies after this.
Hmm.
So this was the last major movie that he directed. So yeah, his most famous movie was basically Empire Strikes Back, and that is a favorite for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know that's a lot of people's favorite Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm. So moving on, the movie. It is basically a satire, lots of over-the-top action scenes. And that's kind of Paul Verhoeven's thing, to mix satire and egregious, I guess, gore or whatever. But the movie opens with a commercial. Do you remember what the commercial is? It's called Magnavolt.
Um. No, I don't remember that one.
Okay, so the movie opens up. There's like some dude trying to steal a car and he gets electrocuted to death.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
Magnavolt.
Yeah.
And he just throws a dude like that died like to the side and just drives away in his
Just
car.
walks over him callously.
But yeah, in the movie we get those news reports. I guess the Surgeon General gets assassinated, which is kind of weird. Like I don't know why drug people are going to assassinate a Surgeon General, but okay. Um, I will say that the plot of this movie isn't as strong as the first one, because there's certainly some plot holes here. But yeah, we'll get into it. But in these little news reports, Kane is established as a nuke cult leader. So not only is he a drug lord, he's the leader of some type of cult.
I think you should explain what nuke is for people who don't know.
Before we explain what nuke is, Andrew, tell me what sound is made when people do nuke.
What sound?
Whenever someone does nuke on screen, what sound do you hear?
I don't know. I just noticed them injecting it into their neck.
Yeah, and it's like
Oh, okay. Yeah.
like every time they inject it, it's like you
Yeah.
hear this can sound effect that they add to it. Yeah, like it's gonna make this weird sound whenever they inject it into their neck.
I like this part seems, I don't know if this is intentionally satirical or not, or if it's just like campy 80s-ness that like the city has been totally destroyed by this one drug and there's no law and order and police are striking.
Oh, the opening scene where we just see like a string of crimes
Mm-hmm.
being committed. Like there's the old lady walking with her cans, and she gets robbed by some guy, and then the guy gets robbed by like two hookers. And then while the hookers are walking, a gun store just blows the hell up,
Yeah.
and a bunch of criminals um, that look like I don't know how to explain it. They just look like dads. Like they all have dad bods and they're just kind of running in the store. I was like, yeah, these guys don't really look like criminals, but whatever. So they run inside the store. They kill like the store owner, And then in 80s fashion, of course, they find like missile launchers stashed in the back.
Yeah.
Like in every 80s movie, anytime a gun store gets robbed, there is a rocket launcher stored somewhere in the back of that gun store.
Yeah.
I don't know how many 80s movies I've seen, but I swear to God, almost every one of these gun stores has a rocket launcher in the back somewhere. So
Yeah.
not only do they find one rocket launcher, they find two. So while they're robbing the store, our hero shows up, and while he's driving to the scene, one of the guys just busts out a big ass missile launcher and shoots it at Robocop's car.
Twice.
And he shoots one, and then he gets another bazooka and he shoots him again with it.
Yeah.
And then
That's a
of
fucking
course,
rocket-proof car, man.
well, the car was pretty fucked up afterwards.
Yeah, no way. That's a fucking
was-
rocket-proof Robocop.
Yeah, so he gets out. He starts shooting the bad guys up, of course. And well, he comes out, he takes out the bad guys, right? And then one of them he leaves alive, and he's like interrogating him, and he's like, "Nuke, where is it made?" Or you know how he talks, "Nuke, where is it made?"
Where is it made?
So then after that, we see him just like casually strolling through Skid Row. He's just walking through this bummy ass neighborhood, and then it starts getting pretty funny here. He shows up at a door, and he knocks on it, and the guy's like, "Who's there?" And he just punches the dude through the door.
Yeah, when he did that, I thought, why didn't you just break the door in the first place if you were gonna do that?
It's still pretty funny. He just punches the guy in the chest.
Yeah.
Through the door. So it's kind of like a drug lab, and there's like salsa music playing in the background. And there's a friggin' baby in there, which
Yeah.
is kind of crazy. And then RoboCop like walks near the baby and starts consoling it because the baby is crying and nobody's like attending to the baby.
Yeah.
So RoboDad goes in there, consoles the baby, and he basically announces that it's a bust. And while he's standing close by to this baby, the bad guys just start opening up on him like gunfire.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck, man? There's a baby standing right next to him, and they're just like firing machine guns at him. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So yeah, he kills some of these bad guys. There's a pretty notable scene here that I thought was pretty interesting. Oh yeah, and we also get the theme of, because he didn't really do this much in the first movie. I actually don't remember him doing it at all. But in this movie, he shoots a lot of people without looking at them.
Oh, okay.
Did you notice that?
No, I didn't notice that. I noticed
There's a guy that
a
shoots
couple times, like just shooting to his side while he was walking. But other than that,
Yeah, he does it a lot in this movie. So what happens? He gets shot in the back, and then he pivots his body, but his head stays like looking away from the guy, and he shoots him. So he basically shoots the guy without looking at him.
Right.
And then we see Kane, and he just kind of casually walks out of the place while it's being raided.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like some screaming Asian lady in his limo, and he just shoots her for no reason that I can gather.
Does it seem to you that there are a lot of cheesy 80 villains that are balding? There are cheesy 80 villains that are balding in both RoboCop and RoboCop 2.
Well, you got Kane, you got Boddicker.
Red.
Yeah, Red. So I guess, yeah, the main guys are balding. This one is especially bad. I think he has like his hair in a ponytail.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the worst way to rock a balding head. But
yeah,
Anyway,
I'm just gonna go full bald if my hair's ever like that.
no, it's not worth looking scraggly. But anyway, so Lewis also shows up. She opens a fridge and takes a couple dudes out. We see the kid there, and the kid shoots Robocop in the head. And he kind of glitches out for a little bit and has some flashbacks. And then the kid just kind of runs off because the kid basically says, "Oh, you can't shoot kids, so I'm basically safe." And
Yeah,
he just runs out of there.
It's interesting that he glitches when you shoot him in the head. Like,
I guess it's like a concussion or something, because I know he has some brain matter in there, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like what Kane eventually becomes, but he does have a bit more organic matter than Kane did when he was turned. But I'm guessing maybe as a concussion. I don't know. I guess that might have been it. But
it's interesting that like you mentioned too, he was when he was malfunctioning, I think he sort of confused momentarily, like saw that kid as a flashback of his son, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting first part of this one. They go back to the theme of, how do you define the line between man and machine when someone is a cyborg, and they keep having to try to convince him that he is a machine because he still feels like a human, because he still is a human brain, I think, right?
Yeah, we do get into those questions in a little bit, actually. And there's a major scene that happens where he has a problem with his humanity, and he's kind of struggling with that. But he does have some flashbacks about his own kids when when he gets shot in the head, and that definitely messes him up a little bit. But then we get another crazy scene, right? Do you remember what happens when this guy takes the baby hostage?
So what's her name? His partner?
Lewis?
Lewis comes in. She kills some bad guys. She eventually gets to him after opening the door that Robocop had locked and grabbing the guy's gun before he shoots her. She shoots the other guy and then I think shoots him. And then she eventually gets to where Robocop is, and they have sort of a Mexican standoff. And then without Robocop even trying to like silently get her attention, she is aimed at the guy who I think is holding a gun to. Is he holding a gun to the baby's head? I think.
Yeah, he's basically holding a baby hostage by pointing
So
a gun
then
at the baby.
Robocop, you can see in his vision, he's like calculating a trajectory or a path for his bullet to go, and he ricochets his bullet off of a wall into the guy's head, right?
Yeah. It's so badass. It's like, holy shit. And you gotta remember, this is like from the 80s, or like, 90s, right? Came out in 1990. You gotta consider, this is probably one of the first times that has ever been done on film, where you see some robot, well, in this case, Robocop, calculating a ricochet trajectory to take a dude out. It was a really unique hostage resolution situation played on screen there. That, like, oh yeah, that's probably one of my most memorable scenes when it comes to like the combat. Him taking out that hostage by bouncing a bullet off of the wall.
Yeah, that is really cool. I like that.
Another thing that was really jarring, because this came out in the 1990s, it was really jarring to have one of the main antagonists, a 12-year-old kid who sold drugs and had a potty mouth.
Yeah,
Like,
I thought that was interesting too. That like basically one of the main or secondary villains is a kid. like you were saying.
So, if you want to kind of take a temperature of the times, I would suggest trying to locate the Siskel and Ebert review of Robocop 2, as they really hated the fact that they had this kid in the movie who was swearing and killing people and who was a drug dealer. All
It just sounds like
right.
a puritanical objection. Like they should elaborate more on why that makes it a bad film. I'm sure.
Well, they did. Their main reason was, oh, what if a kid watches this and they think that that's okay? I just don't think kids are that stupid. First
What
of
if a kid
all,
watches it and emphasizes with Kane and thinks that you should become a giant killer robot and go around shooting people?
yeah, it's basically a ridiculous like argument. Like I watched it probably when I was like 11 or 12, and I didn't want to be Hob, the kid with the folding machine gun. Like
Yeah,
everyone who was watching it was looking up to RoboCop.
yeah, he's the
Like he's
hero.
the hero of the story.
Hmm.
So anyway, after this whole ordeal calms down, we see RoboCop, and he's kind of like stalking his family.
Yeah,
He's having some more flashbacks from the first movie. So I think they actually just replay some footage from the first movie when he was going through like his house and kind of remembering things. And then we see him back at like his lab, like where he gets his tune-ups and stuff. And OCP tells him that his ex-wife is bringing a suit. And the way that OCP frames this, as if they're framing it as in they do like she's upset that he's stalking her, and we kind of get a different vibe right after that. It's
yeah.
just like, oh yeah, she's bringing a suit against us um, for using you or whatever, and she doesn't want you around her family anymore. And this is weird because this doesn't get resolved at all in this film.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was thinking too. Like when especially when his ex-wife comes to see him and he gets her to touch his face because he's empathizing with her, but then he emotionally shuts her off because that chick earlier like basically reinforces programming that he has to think that he's a machine, so he pushes her away, but then there's no other difficulty with that for the rest of the movie. It's like it's magically fixed right there, even after he electrocutes himself later on to totally stop his programming.
yeah, so because I don't think that was a program response. I think he was actually reacting to the news that OCP gave him. I think he believed that she was genuinely upset that he was stalking her. So that's why, and then
Oh,
that
I
she
didn't
was
even
gonna.
get that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's how OCP was framing it.
yeah,
Like they're framing it that, hey, she's wants to sue us because you keep stalking her and blah 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 blah. And then she shows up and she does not seem upset at all with him. She actually looks like she really wants to see him. And that was basically what all of OCP was saying was bullshit. It could have just been she wanted to sue OCP for turning her husband into a robot, maybe that, but I don't think it had anything to do with him just like showing up and watching the family.
yeah.
Um,
I agree with that part too. Yeah,
yeah, because we see that she walks out really upset after he tells her that Murphy is dead, like Alex Murphy is dead. And then she doesn't seem to really believe it. She gets mad and upset and leaves, but I don't. We don't really know how that resolves because this is just kind of where they end that little thread. There's no
yeah.
follow up whatsoever with this.
Hey, did you notice? I sort of noticed that to me, um, Murphy's human face when he is RoboCop and takes off his helmet, to me that looked better and more realistic in the first movie than it looked in this one, unless they were intending to make his face look like more of a robotic impression of his human face, because that's what it looked like to me a little bit more so, like sort of subtly so, in this second one in comparison to the first one.
Well, I know for sure there are animatronic shots of his face. So you get to see that when he gets cut up into pieces, it's just an animatronic. Like it's
Right.
not a real face. And I know for a large section we do get to see that animatronic face. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
That's probably what I'm referring to, yeah.
Yeah, because when he gets chopped up, he just looks like you can tell he's not a guy with makeup on. It's just like an animatronic. That's why I love practical effects. It's like, oh yeah, those guys tried really hard making this little animatronic robot thing, and a lot of love and care went into it. But it sounds like you barely noticed. Oh, yeah, I guess it was animatronic.
Yeah,
You thought it. So I guess they did a pretty good job.
yeah, like I said, it was subtle. It was still pretty well done,
Yeah,
especially for
so
like 1990, right?
yeah, this is 1990. So this is kind of like the last ditch effort of non-CG because we got to think that Jurassic Park came out like a year or two after this.
Right.
And that's when movies just started completely converting into just using CG instead of practical effects. Because it was 3 years, and then that's when Jurassic Park comes out.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought I kind
Yeah.
of I didn't realize that it was earlier than that, but that makes sense because I had thought before that like when CG started becoming kind of ubiquitous was after The Matrix when everyone was trying to imitate that. But I didn't think about Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Oh no, Jurassic Park is when CG made its big splash on the scene. But let's see.
Like
Oh yeah, so
what are some other 90s movies like that that just started overusing them? I'm sure there are a lot.
well, what year was let me see.
Jurassic Park was 92 or 93, you said?
93, yeah.
Okay.
Starship Troopers is heavily
That's true.
heavily CG. And Starship Troopers is only what 4
97.
years after Jurassic Park. So if you look at between that and there are practical effects though in Starship Troopers and
Hey,
some of the scenes.
didn't Terminator 2 come out in the 90s? Yeah,
Terminator 2 had a lot of practical effects. Like the big thing about the CGI was T1000,
right.
but most of the effects were practical.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, like anytime they showed like the vast majority of the effects were practical. It was only the liquid metal transitions that were computer generated. But most of the effects in Terminator 2 were practical effects.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And what was Terminator 2? When did that come out?
Um,
Early 90s. That's like what,
that
92
might have
maybe?
been
91. So it actually came out a year after Robocop.
91.
Yeah, we're at 91.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember that was a big deal, the T1000. Um,
Yeah, Terminator 2 is still my favorite Terminator movie.
oh, yeah, that's definitely the best one. I agree. All right, so getting into it, we uh, we get another commercial, interstitial, and a guy shoots himself in the head in the commercial. I forgot why, but
Oh
he
yeah,
commits he commits suicide. I was like, oh, that's a strange
I yeah,
commercial.
I remember thinking that was kind of random, but I don't remember what it was about either.
Yeah, I just wrote note commercial guy shoots self in the head. That's what I wrote on my notes.
Yeah.
And then we get a scene over at the corporate headquarters at OCP. The mayor marches in and he's like extremely angry. And what's going on, it looks like, is they goaded the mayor into getting into extreme debt so that OCP forecloses on them. So it's basically a plot to privatize the city.
Yep.
And the mayor just leaves really mad. He tells the old guy, "Fuck you, you senile old bastard," or "you old senile bastard." Like he calls him that a couple times, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna sue you," and he's like, "Oh, I hope so," or something like that. So this creates the big dilemma of basically OCP becoming the overlord of the city. So they become a big bad at this point. Um, And then we're shown some Robocop 2 prototypes. I'm not even exactly sure why this is a plot point in the movie.
It
Like,
seems like an homage to the if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, it seems like an homage to a similar scene in the first movie.
well, in the first movie, we had the Ed 209 that was disastrous, where the guy got shot up. But in this one, we do have a similar scene where the first robot comes out. It goes crazy. It shoots like a couple of the scientists, and then it shoots itself in the head. Another one of the prototypes comes walking out. It basically takes its helmet off, and there's like a skull under it, screaming, and it just collapses on the ground.
Yeah, that
And it's
that was
fun.
funny.
Yeah, it's funny because we see like the reaction of the CEO, and he's just kind of face palming through the whole presentation. And this is what doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you're going to, I know they're doing this because it's funny,
Yeah.
but in the real world, who would go to the CEO with a failed prototype and just like use that as a presentation? Like, oh, here's my presentation of Robocop 2. And it's like two failed, like overly fucked up failed prototypes that you're showing the CEO of your company. And he's like, oh, it looks like we just wasted 19 million. It's like, like I understand it's supposed to be funny, but like realistically, it doesn't really make sense.
That's why it's satirical. Like the corporation cares so much about militarizing and corporatizing the police and thus the control of the entire city too, that they don't even care how well the prototypes work or whether there is like a human soul who has to suffer for this thing to work.
Yeah, so at this point, there's some comments about that cops make bad candidates, and the lady named Fax, she says to consider like different types of candidates, and that Murphy was kind of like a one of the kind deal that would be hard to replicate.
He's a real noble cop, man. He's a good man.
A family man, yeah. But next scene, Murphy or and Lewis are returning back to the precinct. It seems like in every single RoboCop movie, like the cops are always on strike. I think they're on strike in this third
Yeah.
movie too. We're not going to watch the third movie. It's just not good. But like everyone says, part two isn't good as part one. I agree, but I still like part two. I
Yeah,
still think it's
to
worth
me, it's
watching.
more, it's a little bit more like a generic '80s movie, but it's like a little bit more satirical, and I like and I like the general themes, like science fiction themes of the plot anyway. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
why I would say I agree with you about that.
All right, so yeah, the strikers are upset that they're breaking the line and being scabs or whatever they're called. And then we get a scene of a cop named Duffy, and he goes behind in a little area, and he takes his in the neck, and he's like, we see that, okay, we got a cop that's doing nuke too. So um, at this point, Murphy and Lewis stake out like an arcade, and they see the drug dealer kid in there named Hobb. And then we switch over, and then Hobb is having a discussion with Duffy, the cop that had just taken his nuke. And he gives Hobb information about his co-workers, basically his other cops, about their patrol routes and things like that. And Hobb gives them like a fat wad of cash, and then he goads Duffy into taking some nuke as well. And I think this is basically, hey,
That's
you
the
have
funny
them
part.
two. Yeah, like he has them two ways. He has them with the money, and he has them with the drugs.
Yeah.
And it also seems like Duffy was trying to kick the habit too, but he was just like goading him into taking that nuke.
And it's funny because it's a kid doing it, right? He's like, "Come on, I know."
Yeah, that's like, yeah, it must have been when this movie came out, it must have been unbelievable. I remember when I was watching, I was kind of like, it kind of blew me away too when it came out, because this was, like, I think our society was extremely puritanical about drugs in the 90s.
I noticed
Um,
that in the movie.
yeah, so yeah, so yeah, a kid dealing drugs was definitely um, outrage bait, at least for Siskel and Ebert. So Robocop shows up, and then we see that Duffy, the druggy cop, gets stuck in like the back room with nowhere to go. Um, so Murphy shows up, and he's like, "Oh, this isn't a school day, or isn't this a school day?" And then all the kids just start throwing crap at him, and I think most of them just run out of there because he can't chase anybody down, of course, because he
Yeah.
doesn't run. Um, so Lewis actually finds Hobb and backs him into a corner, and he busts out his like folding machine gun and starts taking shots. Um, I think she kind of slaps the gun away or something. Or there's like some other dudes there, and she gets in a tussle with them. She takes those dudes out. Hobb comes back with like a garrote wire, like a piano wire, and tries to choke her out. Um,
I,
the other scene, Murphy
I was
just,
so like, I was, I thought that part was a little bit funny because I'm like, this kid can get this much leverage against this. I mean, I know he's male and she's female, but she's a full grown adult and has like probably at least 80 pounds on him or something like that. How is he going to have that much force on her?
well, we do see that he really is ineffective.
Yeah.
So, um, because she just slams him against the wall and he let goes, and they both kind of like get stunned for a little bit, but the kid revives first and he just runs off. But in the arcade room, Murphy finds the druggy cop, and he slams him into an arcade cabinet of Midnight Resistance. Good game, by the way. And he asks Duffy where he can find Kane, and then Murphy slams Duffy into a bad dude's arcade cabinet, and then we get switched over where basically I just had explained about the whole choking thing, and then switching back, Duffy finally gives up.
What was
Go
that game
ahead.
you just mentioned that you said is a really good game? The Resistance?
Midnight Resistance.
Midnight
I
Resistance?
had the Sega Genesis version of that game.
I haven't heard of that game.
It was an arcade game, and it got ported to the Genesis. It's not a very common. I remember seeing it a lot in arcades around that time, so it's just kind of like a nostalgia for me seeing these old arcade games. So next thing we have Duffy does give up Kane's location eventually. And I got to get my notebook now because that's where I put the rest of my notes.
Okay.
Let me just find that thing. I had taken notes on like a Word document, and then I said, screw it. I'll finish the rest of it on a little notepad.
Oh, okay.
And where is that goddamn notepad? I think, well, while I look for the notepad, I know what happens next. So Kane's location is given up, and he's told that it's at the sludge plant or something like that. And the sludge plant looks very much like the area from the first RoboCop movie.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
It probably might even be the same area. But like what I know that this movie was shot. Well, the first movie was shot in Dallas and in Pennsylvania somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So it's not no Detroit whatsoever.
Is it? It's
I don't know
meant
if
to be Detroit in the movies?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Detroit.
Right.
I don't know if the second film was also shot in Dallas and Pittsburgh. It looks like they used like the same type of locations, but who knows? So, we see that the Robocop drives in and his car hits like a landmine or something. And then the bad guys go and inspect the car, and there's like nothing, no trace of him, but he's hiding behind some type of shack. Eventually, he enters a plant. There's like some weird part I really didn't get. So he finds like Elvis's dead body in a glass case. I have no goddamn idea why this is in the movie.
Me neither.
I was like, why is Elvis's dead body in a glass case? Why is this in the middle of like some type of industrial plant? It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
I think he was just. I think they were trolling the audience with this.
Probably.
But anyway, like that lady, that's, I guess it's like Kane's third hand man. It's like some lady. She's there, and I think she like shoots him with like a like some type of harpoon thing, and there's like electricity that comes out of it. And
Right.
when he gets hit with electricity, it looks like he's humping the air,
Yeah.
like Robocop. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
he's like humping the air. He gets his hand shot off as well. So after he gets electrocuted, Kane says, like, Jesus had days like this or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, he's still getting shocked, and then he takes the shock thing off of his chest and connects it to where his arm used to be, where his hand got shot off, and he shocks the lady, and she just goes flying.
Right.
And then he gets sucked up by an electromagnet, and they proceed to dismantle him. They have like a really hard time at first, but they eventually get them. He gets chopped up into pieces, basically, by jackhammers.
Yep.
And then I don't know, Kane like steps over Robocop and he's like, "You think it was me who beat you?" And then he does this little in the neck. So we see him get dropped off, and this is where he turns into animatronic dude. All right, hold on a second.
Getting a phone call. Yeah, this is where you can. It's a little bit easier to see that that his face is an animatronic version and not his own. And yeah, that's when they basically ripped him apart, as Dusty was just saying. Like I think they, I think his head is still attached to his torso, but then his arms and legs are detached. I don't remember whether his head is detached from his torso, though.
Oh, his head's definitely still attached. It's like his head. I think they take off both his arms, and his legs are definitely like his lower half is definitely detached, and you just see him like wiggling around.
Yeah,
And this is like when you get to see his animatronic face, the
yeah.
one that you notice looks strange.
That reminds me of when you can notice that a few times in Terminator 2 also, like you were saying how there's some animatronic stuff in there, right?
Yeah, it's animatronics.
Like that part in those parts in Terminator 2 when Arnold
On Total
has like
Recall for
various
sure.
stages of deterioration where you can see more and more of his robot face. A few times you can tell it's animatronics.
Oh yeah, and then Total Recall when he takes off like the woman that mask thing.
Yeah,
Arnold's head is actually an animatronic under that. So I was like,
yeah.
why do they do that? Why do you have to? But here's another cool note. Paul Verhoeven directed that.
Yeah, I know. I remembered that I've heard about that recently. I think probably around the time we were talking about Starship Troopers. That'd be a good movie to
Yeah, so
talk
he
about
did
too.
he did Total Recall.
I like Paul
Yeah,
Verhoeven
three titty lady.
all the
Okay,
time.
so yeah, as satirical. Well, I guess there are some funny things in Total Recall and some ridiculous things, like when he pulls like a giant golf ball size thing, like that part where he pulls the thing out of his nose. That's an animatronic head.
Oh, okay.
All
Yeah,
right,
I don't remember
let's.
I don't remember that much satire in Total Recall when I watched it before, but maybe it would be one of those movies like Starship Troopers where when I go back and look at it looking for satire, I might find more there. I don't know. Have you watched it more recently?
Oh, it's been a while. Probably haven't seen it. Probably been at least, I would guess 6, 7, 8 years since I've last seen it. It's been a while,
It might be not
but
quite as
maybe,
long as that for me, but a pretty long time.
yeah. It's probably been at least 6 years, maybe 7. I know I haven't seen it since I've moved here. It's been at least 6 or 7 years. But moving on. So he is put back together in the lab. I put a note to animatronic Murphy, pretty creepy looking. So OCP actually has second thoughts on fixing him because he seems to be like a money sink. Um, and then the next scene we get is Duffy gets knocked out, and we see they take him. They basically found out that he revealed Kane's location to Kane. So they take him to some back room and they cut his chest open with a scalpel.
Yeah.
And the kid is forced to watch. And you can see that the kid is pretty shocked by it.
Yeah.
Um, so we get Another scene, a psychologist lady wants to use death row inmates, and I think he's like number two. I think his name is Thompson or something. Is kind of appalled at that idea of using inmates. So he goes to the old guy's mansion or whatever, and he's like in a hot tub, and he goes to complain about the idea. And he's like, oh no, I'm going forward with that. And then you see the psychologist lady, Fax is her name, comes into the hot tub. So I guess we assume that they're banging each other or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I assumed.
She got what she wanted.
Yeah, so she banged her way into getting her project rolling.
Yep.
So while they're still trying to put Murphy back together, we see a screen pop out of Murphy's bicep that says warning or something. It's like off warranty or something. Weird place to put a screen. But anyway, this is the part where they reprogram him. So
and turn him into like Captain Lame Puritan.
Yeah, so he also starts to assert his identity again as Murphy. So I guess they see that this is a problem.
Yeah.
So he gets reprogrammed. He becomes like super peppy. And the first situation we see him deal with is a robbery by a little league team. And when they show up, the coach is just outside taking pot shots at him, and Murphy's just like sitting in the car not doing shit. And then Lewis is like, "What the hell are you doing?" So I think Murphy kills him, and then she goes inside, and he's like slowly walking through there, taking his sweet time.
Kill him, right? Because his aim is off, and he's doing everything to avoid shooting. I think
he's not trying to kill anybody.
Yeah,
we could tell, like, there's definitely his program gets fucked up. We get to see this. So Lewis goes up to the guy and kicks him, I guess, and he kills him. So he's dead, the coach dude. And then Robocop starts reading the dead guy Miranda rights.
Yeah.
And Lewis is like, "What are you doing? You're reading Miranda to a corpse." And then you see him kind of like temple his fingers together, and he says, "I'm having trouble." He just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. It's just like, I love Peter Weller's gestures that he does as Robocop. He just played the role perfectly.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, he's like, "I'm having trouble." What the hell? So anyway, he goes into the store and starts scolding the children.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What the fuck?" And they just run out. And then now they're on a drive. And then Robocop is like, "Isn't the moon wonderful tonight?" It's like freaking daytime. And she's like, "It's daytime. What are you talking about? It's the middle of the day." He's like, "Oh, it's the thought that counts." Oh man, this is just a really funny section of the movie.
Yeah.
And then we can see that he gets out because he sees some kids playing with a fire hydrant, and he pretty much gives the exact same speech to these kids that he does with the other kids, and they're like, "Oh, Robocop's fucked up," or something like that.
Yeah.
And then some guy's just like smoking outside, and friggin' Robocop whips his gun out and just shoots an outline around the guy.
Yeah.
And he just says, "Thank you for not smoking." So we basically get to see that OCP put nonsense into the guy's brain.
Yeah.
And Murphy overhears this, and he's like fed up and whatnot. So he storms out, and he puts his hand on an electrical transformer and shocks himself to restore his circuits. Not
Yeah.
only did he restore his circuits, he wiped out all directives. So he has no directives now.
Yeah.
So he's basically operating at full human at this point. So he doesn't have any of these robotic commands in his brain anymore. Like in the first movie, he had 4. And then after they fucked up with his brain, I think they added like 250 plus directives.
Yeah.
And then after he shocked himself, he wiped them out.
Right.
But in order to remove him from the transformer, Lewis hits Robocop in the chest with a 2x4.
Yep.
And then so they carry him off, and he's just like, butt me down. And he gets down, and he's kind of hot and bothered. And people ask, I think one of the cops asked him, like, what's bothering him? He's like, well, Kane bugs me or whatever. So he's kind of back into his mode where he wants to go back after Kane. Next scene, they're in the drug lab, and Kane tests some more of his, and we get a cameo from Frank Miller, who is the scientist is Frank Miller.
Like the graphic novel creator?
Yeah, he wrote the Robocop graphic novel.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a graphic novel. Wow.
Yeah, Robocop is based off of graphic novels.
Oh, okay.
And Frank Miller wrote those. Yeah.
Oh. That seems like, it doesn't seem like the satirical type. Was that added to the movie?
I don't know, because I never read any of the graphic novels, so I couldn't tell you.
He did Sin City and 300
Watchmen
series of Batman.
Yeah, he also did the Watchmen, right?
No, that was Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, he did 300, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He did some Batman like graphic novels. He did Sin City as well. That was a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's known for his graphic novels and his basically that's what he's known for, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he is the scientist, and yeah, so they do that, and next scene we see like a bunch of cop cars just kind of storming the streets. One of the bystanders says that the cops are going to kick some ass.
Yeah.
So Robocop shows up back at Kane's lab. He shoots some guy through the eye scope. And then everybody else that he shoots after this, he shoots them without looking at them. Lewis takes one of these guys out, and then Murphy takes 3 guys out without looking at them. Hobb manages to machine gun 2 of the cops, and that lady shoots like some smoke grenades out so that they can get away in the nuke van. And one of the cops enters the drug lab, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And then Frank Miller's just kind of hiding in a corner. The cop runs out of the drug lab, and it just blows up. So bye-bye, Frank Miller. He didn't last very long.
Yep. That's a cool
we see
play.
So Robocop then gets hit by the nuke truck, and they go driving around the city. I know for sure the truck drives completely through a bar, like a dive bar, big 80s fashion.
Yep.
They polish Robocop on a wall. You see all these sparks flying out. And eventually Robocop gets hit by a telephone. And there's a part where like some motorcyclists are like jumping ramps and off of him, and then he grabs one of the motorcycles, and the guy goes flying off. And then they play a game of chicken of big ass van versus motorcycle.
Yep.
I wonder who's going to win that. We get to see them rev on their ends. They're like revving up. Of course, the motorcycle sounds badass, and then the nuke truck is like, like some weird sound, like revving up like a little armored. It's a bomb disposal vehicle. So they go at each other. A Robocop flies through the windshield and apprehends Kane. Then we get a news report that says the nuke lord has been caught. And then we see Sunblock 5000.
Yeah, that's a really funny commercial.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, there's no more ozone layer. You got to protect yourself from harmful UV rays that cause cancer. And then the end of the commercial, product may cause cancer. So it's like, which one is going to give you cancer first, the sun or the product?
Yeah.
So after the psych lady, Fax, considers Kane as a candidate, then we get to see a little scene with Hobb and the chick. And Hobb basically, she wants to break Kane out. And Hobb is like, fuck Kane. and in order to get her on his side, he says, no more nuke for you, bitch. It's like a 13-year-old kid telling this adult woman this. So he convinces her. She takes one of the nukes, and she gets the tss in the neck. There's a lot of tss in the neck in this movie.
Yep.
The psych lady, the psychologist lady, who visits Kane and takes him off life supports. And then they go to the surgical theater. Like, this is the part that I could not watch as a kid. It was just too gruesome. Anything that has to do with sawing bones and taking out brains and stuff, I just couldn't handle this as a kid when it came out.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh yeah, this is fake stuff. But the sound effects in this section are really gruesome.
Yeah.
I think the sound effects are probably worse than what you actually see. Like, they take the top of his head off and then pull his brain out or whatever.
Yeah.
But the sound effects are super gross sounding.
Yeah, they are.
So they take his brain out and his eyes are connected to it. It's kind of weird. And then we see like a little surveillance video of like the surgical area, and just one of the doctors is just kind of casually holding Kane's face like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like his empty skull with his face still on it. Like, okay. And then we see a guy playing Born to Be Wild on the violin.
Yeah.
And it's for the mayor's telethon. And he's trying to raise money because the city's going bankrupt. So during this, they get a call from Angie. That's the name of the lady who is the, I guess, the new second in command. And she offers to bail the city out. We get a cut to OCP, and they find out, like, one of the councilmen rats out the mayor and basically tells what happened, that there's a donor and they're going to get saved. And he goes to the OCP boss and tells him all this. And then they throw a wrench in the plan by sending something out to their location. So they have, and he basically says there must be no witnesses. So he's basically plotting murder at this point, which is where his, okay, so this is where, like, okay, the guy's evil. He's plotting murder. So Oh yeah. So the next part, the psychologist lady actually tells Kane, who's now Robo Kane, that he has to go. She has a job for him, and she offers Nuke as a reward.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
yeah, and then his little grabber thing is like flexing for that Nuke, but she's like, nope, you got to do this first, and then you get the Nuke. So next scene, the mayor shows up at the sludge plant. Hobb is wearing like a business suit, and he offers 50 million to the mayor. I think they only needed 37, but he offers 50.
Mm.
I think one of the other people because he brings 3 people with him, or 2 other people with him, and the other guy's like, these people are criminals. Like, he's kind of morally outraged about their little plan that they have.
That guy who plays the mayor is such a politician. Such a ridiculously stereotypical politician. And that
Oh
guy
yeah,
who's
the one
like that guy who's like his right-hand man, that fat guy with a beard, that guy's a really bad actor.
Well, that guy was the guy who ratted them out
Yeah.
to OCP. Why do you say he's a bad actor?
Oh wait, no, I'm not thinking of that guy. I'm thinking of the
The
guy
one that says that they're criminals?
the guy who's a member of OCP who's a fat guy with a beard. He's talking to the head old guy at one point. I don't remember what his name is.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Yeah, I don't remember. It might be that same councilman guy that came and ratted them out, maybe.
Yeah.
It might be the same guy. But so Canebot shows up. So while he shows up, Hobb plans to lower drug prices, and he believes this will keep crime down,
Right.
which will benefit the mayor. So this is his pitch to the mayor and why he wants to deal with these criminals.
Yeah.
And during this meeting, like Angie, she's taking some more Nuke, and so she's during the little, she makes that offer too, and she takes the in the neck. And then as this happens, Kane starts shooting up the meeting. So the first guy that gets shot up, I believe, is a councilman. He's like running outside, and he gets shot through the door more than once. Oh, wait, the other councilman, the puritanical councilman gets shot first, and then the rat councilman gets shot up through the door. Canebot sees Angie, and they have like a weird reunion. Do you want to kind of explain the reunion that they have?
Weird, creepy robot reunion.
Yes.
The way she phrases that is really similar to the way that Vanessa phrases a similar line to Deadpool at the end of the first Deadpool movie. Like the way that this chick phrases it is something like, "It'll take some adjusting, but I'll get used to it." In the same way that at the end of Deadpool, Vanessa says, "It'll take a lot of adjustment and a lot of alcohol." But then she says, but after I get used to it, it's a face I'd love to sit on," when she's talking about Deadpool's ugly burned.
Well, at least it's humanly possible. I don't know how the hell Angie was going to manage with a friggin' like a full prosthetic cyborg body. Like,
I feel like he'd kill her.
How are you going to pleasure that?
Sex with her.
Yeah, so he basically just picks her up by the head and snaps her neck really quick.
Yeah.
And then so stupid though. She's like, "Oh wow, you look great. Like, you guy's a fucking killer robot." Like, okay. And then during their conversation, like Canebot's making all these weird sounds. Like he cannot talk That's the weird thing too, is he can't talk. He just makes like weird sound effects.
Yeah.
He has a screen where his like computer generated face shows up on. It's such a weird thing. Like,
Yeah,
okay, they gave him a
that pops
screen.
out and shows his like weird disembodied face.
Yeah, we can see his face and his emotions, but he can't. Whenever he talks, it's just like a weird grunting and sound effects.
Yeah.
Which is pretty. That's an interesting thing, like take on it. Like think. I think that it serves the movie better that he doesn't have a speaking role after that, because he just seems so much more psychotic.
Yeah.
That he doesn't speak. He's just a silent killer that just murders people, murders anybody. I'm going to take a quick piss. Hold on, man. I got to take a piss. Hold on. I'm not going to record it.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
Oh, you know what? That reminds me of you mentioned you were gonna ask people if they have any questions about Robocop 2, and I only saw one of them that someone asked, and someone asked how Robocop pees, and I answered them and said, I like, does he still need to be? Does he still have a dick? Like, I thought that maybe is it just his is it just his brain is that the only part of his physical body that has been transferred over to his cyborg body? I think so. I don't think he has a dick or a need to be, as far as I know. I don't know.
I think that he pretty much has the same parts as the Kane robot, plus a face and a head. I don't think he has a stomach, even though he gets fed like this baby food stuff. I don't think he's actually digesting it in the stomach. I don't think
And they
he
don't even
pisses. I don't think he
have
shits.
baby food in the second one, do they?
No, there's no baby food in part 2.
Yeah.
Well, we got to assume though that he's still eating baby food because he has to keep his organic parts alive.
It's so weird that, like, you must eat baby food to survive. Why? Why baby?
I think it's already mashed up. You know, he doesn't have to do much. Just take it into. Does it show how they feed him? Like, do they feed him through the mouth, or does it
I don't
just
know.
go somewhere else?
I don't know.
They never show how they actually get the food inside of him.
That's true.
So we have no idea. I don't think he has a penis, so I don't think he can piss.
Yeah.
As for Peter Weller, I have no idea how he managed that suit at all. I don't know what they had to do if he had to take a dump or a piss. I don't know if he soldiered through it or if he actually had to dismantle everything and take a piss or something. But maybe that crotch panel just kind of comes off and he can take a piss there.
Yeah, like a onesie.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, that was like one of the only questions. I think another question is why this one? Why did we choose 2? Are we sadistic or something? I don't think 2's that bad of a movie. I don't even think 2's a bad movie. I actually like 2. I think it's good. Not as good as 1, but it's still good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, speeding along here. So, what were we saying? Yeah. So they're at the plant. So Angie gets her neck snapped, right? And then Hobb gets seen by Kane, and Hobb retreats into the nuke truck. And then Murph shows up at this point, but he shows up after everyone's been massacred. And the only one that seemed to be left alive is Hobb, and he's just kind of lays bleeding in a bed of cash. And Hobb fills him in about what happened. There's kind of like this little touching moment where Hobb is about to die, and RoboCop's basically like, "Oh, I'm going to stay here with you," and we see that human part of RoboCop comes out, and he's there while the kid's dying. It's kind of sad, 12-year-old drug dealer is biting the bullet here. But yeah, Hobb dies, and after this, we see a press. Go ahead.
The part when the kid dies too, and like it reminded me of the part where he was remembering his son earlier with that kid too.
Yeah, that's true. Like that's probably one of the reasons we see RoboCop with a heart here.
Yeah.
But you have to think too, he's more human now because he doesn't have the directives anymore.
Yeah. So he should go looking for his family now, right?
Yeah, you would expect that, but they didn't follow up on that thread.
Yeah.
So next thing that happens, the Detroit mayor has a press conference, basically saying, I forgot what the point of it was, but I think he was talking shit about OCP or something like that. And then OCP actually creates an event to unveil some new things. So they unveil a new city, and they unveil Robocop 2. And during this, the mayor shows up, and he puts two and two together, and he's like, oh shit, they sent this thing after me.
Yep.
Because it's the same machine that he had to deal with earlier during the meeting. Oh, yeah, so just the mayor was the only one I think had escaped alive, right?
Yep.
And he basically slid through a sewer while everyone was getting killed. But after they unveil Robocop 2, Robocop 1 shows up. Like he's showing up at this event. The old guy kind of waves a can of nuke around. He's like, yeah, we're trying to get this off the streets. And then the Kane bot sees the nuke, and he starts acting erratically. He destroys like the model city and starts stomping over to the old man. And he's trying to get at that nuke, and the old guy just kind of tosses the nuke aside. And then Robocop says, Kane, let's step outside. And we can see that Robocop has a Cobra gun, it looks like, but it seems like a less destructive Cobra gun because it doesn't have a huge ass explosion when he shoots it at the Kane. But Kane starts wreaking havoc, just like shooting the place up. And the CEO guy, he's like, behave yourselves. And then Robocop, when Robocop and Kane are fighting, during their encounter, Murphy gets rocket punched through a wall.
Yep.
By Kane. And then I think he's just like going down an elevator, and the Kane bot kind of casually walks in there. And Robocop shoots the cable. Robocop goes up, Kane goes down, and we see like Kane bot doing like some crazy scramble up the elevator shafts. And they reach the top of the building, and they're both dangling off the side. And Robocop is just trying to pull Kane off the building, and he ends up body slamming Kane from the top of a skyscraper through the street. And they go down a couple levels through the street into like some type of underground conduit.
That looked like hundreds.
Well, it was off the top of a damn building, and they went like a couple floors deep.
Yeah.
I don't know how deep they went, but they went down a couple floors,
Yeah.
like in a subway tunnel or something. But Kane, so RoboCop gets up. Kane is still alive, and they have a little bit of a tussle down in the sewers.
So surprising that they both survived that.
Well, they're friggin' robots, man.
Yeah.
So they tussle. Like Kane comes out with like this arc welder thing and like zaps RoboCop in the helmet, and then RoboCop grabs the arc welder and forces it into like a gas pipe, and then the sewers just blow the hell up. Eventually, Murphy emerges from the manhole, and then everyone thinks, that he got defeated, but then we see Kane just kind of breaks through the asphalt. So now this is a fight against all the cops and Kane, and they're just kind of unloading on each other. Kane's not only shooting cops, he's like shooting at innocent civilians, and he's just causing general mayhem. And then on a balcony, like the OCP CEO is there with his like his right hand man, and he's like, "Oh, this could look bad for OCP," like very casually.
Yeah.
And then while this is all happening, Murphy goes to grab the nuke from inside the building. We see news people getting shot up, news vans, cameramen, just about everybody. Lewis steals an APC and rams it into Kane. So they think they have him defeated, of course, and then Kane breaks. He actually just picks the thing up and tosses it to the side. This is when Lewis gets the nuke from Robocop and she offers it to Kane. And you see his little happy grabby hand that comes out and it wants the nuke. Kane, so while he's distracted, Murphy rodeos Kane. So Robocop jumps on top of Kane and rodeos him. During this, Kane does an actual somersault while Robocop is attached to his back. And eventually Murphy just grabs the brain and slams it on the ground. And it's weird because it's like a delayed death. Kane doesn't die right away. He like gets weaker and weaker as Robocop punches the brain into the ground, and when he finally smashes the brain with his foot or whatever, that's when Kane dies. Even though his brain is completely attached from the robot at that point. So Robo-Kane, you see when his brain gets pulled out, his little screen pops up with his face on it, and then we see his face like disintegrating, and then it finally like kind of explodes into pixels or whatever, and then he topples over. And this is when we have the discussion. We see the CEO talking to his right hand man, and they're like planning to set up the psychologist like to fall for everything, which I guess makes sense because she did want to use a psychotic criminal as a basis for this thing. And they play, and then she arrives, and they like play it off like they had not just set her up to be the fall guy for this, or fall woman, or whatever you want to call it. And then we see like the mayor, he starts to steal the limelight with the reporters, and is talking shit about OCP again, being a politician. So he does his thing like he's not a snake himself. And then the old man, I think he leaves. Yeah, he leaves, and then the very last words of this movie, and I forgot why he says this, but this is what he says, and he's like screwing in some bolt into his helmet. He says, "Patience, Lewis, we're only human." and that's the last thing. Because I think Lewis is angry that the old man leaves without getting arrested or anything happening to him at all. And that's why he says that. It's like, patience, Lewis, we're only human. I was like, huh? Like, okay, that's the reason why you're not arresting the guy? Yeah, okay, whatever. So there's so many weird plot holes in this movie. I still like it, but there's an unresolved thing with RoboCop's family. We don't know exactly why they even made a RoboCop 2. Like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, we don't get a real good justification. We do not know why they fucked with his programming. Like, they don't give us a good justification of why they fucked with the directives, like OCP. Like, there's a lot of weird shit in the movie that doesn't make sense, but I still like it. I don't care. I still like it. It's still entertaining. Like, I actually thought the action scenes were a bit better in this movie. The action choreography, at least.
That's one thing I noticed, that like in a way that's one of the ways that it was sort of less satirical than the first one, which I like some aspects of it, but I didn't like as much the lack of like ridiculously cartoonish over the top violence, because that was funnier in the first one.
I thought the violence was a bit more over the top in the first one, especially when, if you saw the uncut, there's 2 uncut scenes you have to watch. The 2 uncut scenes are the one where the guy gets blasted in the corporate board meeting. Like, the one in the regular release is probably only half of what they actually filmed.
Holy shit.
Yeah, you can go on YouTube and see if you can find like the full version of that where the guy gets shot up. It's much more gruesome than what they show in the theatrical release.
Wow.
Same thing with Murphy's death. I think for both of those scenes, they cut a minute out.
Oh, wow.
I believe. So there's like a minute of them going very over the top in those 2 separate scenes.
Right.
So they did cut some stuff out. It was way over the top, and then they just made it a bit over the top. That's just kind of a Paul Verhoeven thing. He likes to go over the top with these things.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. In the first movie, the big bad was Boddicker. He was kind of the final boss. And it's weird because you would think that Ed 209 would have been a final boss, but he gets thwarted pretty easily in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's not the final boss. And then you get, in this movie, you do get a proper overpowered final boss where we see that, okay, how the hell is Robocop going to defeat this thing? Like, after we see him shoot up the meeting between the mayor and the drug cartel, that's when we become skeptical. It's like, okay, this thing is definitely super fucking powerful. How is Robocop gonna triumph over this thing? So it was more of a brute strength thing, and then the first movie, I guess it was just like human wits versus robot wits. I don't really know what the angle was. It's just, okay, this bad drug gang versus Robocop. But it was more like, had more of a revenge tint to it, because you had him getting revenge for turning him into a robot. You know, he's also the reason he's no longer with his family. So there's a bit of a better driving plot and motivation for Murphy. And this one, it's just kind of, I think it's just a little bit more silly. Like, he wants to go after Kane simply because he's an evil drug dealer or whatever. Like, there's no attachment. like the first villain we get into part one because it's personal. Second movie, it's not really personal. It's like he's just doing his job.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have like a personal stake in defeating Kane. Yeah, Kane creates a lot of havoc and he shoots a lot of innocent people at the end, but he's already very driven in the beginning of the movie, and I think it kind of starts with that scene in the drug lab where the baby gets held hostage and stuff. Like we definitely see Kane's not a good dude, but it's not a personal thing for RoboCop as opposed to like getting his revenge on Boddicker. Well, he doesn't get his revenge, right? Do they kill Boddicker or they apprehend him? I know he kills him. He stabs him in
he
the
kills
neck.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he stabs him in the neck. He does apprehend him and then he kills him later.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Did you like the movie?
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it. I would say, like I was saying earlier, like it's a bit more of it's a bit more of a generic 80s movie to me and less of a satire, so I like it less for that reason, but I still like it because it's still like it's interesting conceptually in terms of the science fiction ideas, and I like the action, and there are some funny parts too, and there are just like some cool stuff like the actual robot boss battle like you talked about.
Yeah, the stop motion work is pretty damn good. Like we got to
Yeah.
remember this robot. There's no CGI involved. It's a stop motion animated. I guess you'd call it like kind of like a puppet that they're moving around, and you got to commend them for that. Like, man, that would be a lot of work just moving around this little model, and I think stop motion I think looked pretty good. Like, yeah, it's not as smooth as CGI, but man, does it look menacing. Like, I thought the big bad was much more menacing in this than the first one, but the plot wasn't there. The little disjointed, and we had these threads that were never resolved, like the whole family thing. So I don't know. Not better than the first one, but still good. I'd I'd give it like 3.9 out of 5.
I give it like I would say I gave the first one probably 4 stars. I'd give this one like 3 stars.
Yeah, it's all right. It's decent. But yeah, I think the first one I gave like 4.5 stars at least. The first one is just very good. And Peter Weller, excellent at the role. Thinking part three, it's a different actor.
Oh, is it?
Part three is just not good. I wouldn't recommend it at all.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Do they go any farther with any of these unresolved plot lines, or is it something totally different, or like what's it about?
I don't remember because the only thing I remember about part three is he fights. Okay, one, I know he gets a jetpack and then a rocket missile launching arm attachment, and he goes flying through some streets, shooting missiles at some gang members or something like that. And then another thing I remember is that I think OCP goes into like a partnership with a Japanese company, and the Japanese company is also producing like robots or cyborgs, and the cyborgs or the robots that the Japanese company makes are basically like they look like Japanese Secret Service agents, but they're like they have ninja abilities, so they're swinging around ninja swords and throwing like ninja stars. So it's a bit ridiculous.
Okay.
And I remember not liking. I remember watching it, and I was like, oh, this it's okay. It's not that good.
Okay.
I just don't think it's anywhere close to as good as part 2 or part 1.
Okay.
And I think the only holdover we have is I think Lewis is the same actress, but Peter Weller gets replaced by someone else, and then it's kind of does that whole jump the shark thing where RoboCop is like, I know he's teams up with a group of misfit kids or something stupid like that.
Okay.
It's stupid. Like I would say, just go watch a YouTuber review RoboCop 3. I think I am later when we get off this, just to remember how ridiculous part 3 is. But yeah, I don't recommend like actually watching it. It's not very good.
Okay.
If you want to watch it, I guess
No,
you probably look up a couple scenes. I would say look up the scenes where he fights the ninja robots, and then the scene where he like flies around in a jetpack.
okay.
If you want to take a look at it, but it's not good. I wouldn't recommend it. I think also, I think it's not rated R either.
Oh, it's PG-13?
I don't think one. I don't remember it having any type of over the top violence in it. I think they totally nixed that. Let me see. RoboCop 3. Um, is it rated R? Let me see. So RoboCop 3 is rated PG-13. So there you go.
Okay.
That's like an automatic thumbs down. RoboCop has to be rated R.
Yes.
Yeah, so PG-13, yeah, not good. Um, who the hell plays RoboCop? A guy named Robert John Burke. But yeah, there's no. The weird thing is like they give him the makeup they put on him makes him kind of look like Peter Weller,
No,
which
that's
is weird.
interesting.
Well, because I'm looking like a picture of him in the movie, um, and his face kind of looks like Peter Weller-ish. It's weird. I don't know. I guess I don't know if they made him up to look like Peter Weller or whatever, but not a good movie. Would not. Rip Torn is in the movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. No,
Okay.
not good. But
Okay.
yeah, 3. What did I give it? No, I think I'll give it like a 3.7.
Okay.
You got 3 stars. And I think we're pretty late, so I don't think we're gonna get into the. Well, actually, I've only read one book, but what'd you read this week?
I just started reading only one book at a time instead of 3, so I've only been reading Lord of Chaos.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we'll be talking about that later. So no need to go over it. I'm also in Lord of Chaos, and I just got to one of the parts. I was like, oh yeah, this shit happens in this book. Oh, okay. Because I'm to the part. I don't know how many pages in are you right now.
400.
Okay, so I'm about 150 pages ahead of you. But so I think you've already read the part then where Rand went back to Shadow Logoth,
Yep.
and one of the maidens got lost.
Yep.
Yeah, and he spent like an entire day looking for the maiden because you can't have women die. So it bothers him a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I've been reading that and like physically reading that, and for audiobook, I'm working on the last book in this trilogy called the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, and it's a series. There's actually a bunch of different books in this universe, or I guess, but this is a trilogy of books for a certain story. Oh man, these are long ass fucking books. Like the one I'm on now, it's 37 hours.
Wow.
So I don't know how long that would be in pages, but I'm pretty sure that'd be pretty damn long.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I'm like 3/4 of the way through it. But it's first person. Uh, it's very drawn out. At least this book is. It's like almost the entire book is about this guy's journey from one place to this ultimate place that he's trying to get to. So it's basically a traditional fantasy traversal story, where they're having an adventure, a long adventure which spans them traveling from one place to another place. Which is interesting because the first two books all kind of took place in one setting. So it's kind of a interesting change. And then there's some new characters that he befriends in this. In the other two books, it's a little bit more static, and a lot of it is about court intrigue. So it's basically backstabbing nobles. In this one, it's more about survival. Like the guy's just trying to survive. Like the backstabbing nobles from the first two books have succeeded and are in power, and he is trying to survive because the noble that succeeded is trying to kill him.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a little he lost the battle, so he's trying to survive. It's said to be pretty good by other people. If you want a decent example of first-person fantasy, I guess this will do the job for you. I like it. I seem to be enjoying it so far, but yeah, I'll probably be done within the next couple days, and that's it, man.
Right.
But I don't know if I'm going to be able to get done with this Lord of Chaos, man, in the next week. I'm only 550 pages in, so that means I got like 400 pages to go.
Right.
I've been stepping up my reading. I have not been reading Malazan and substituting it just with reading Lord of Chaos. But as I'm getting to the second half of the book, the story is definitely picking up more. So I think I'll be able to get through it probably a little bit quicker. But I'm not sure if I'll be done by the end of the week.
Okay. Well, hopefully you are. If not, we can wait a little bit longer. My version is shorter than yours because I'm reading the hardcover version, so it's only 700 pages instead of like 1,000.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine's the trade paperback version. And let me take a look at this big monster of a book. You reading the hardcover?
Yep.
All right. Well, the trade paperback is 910 pages. I'll get there. It's going. I'm enjoying what I'm reading so far. I think the pacing's a little bit better. I think the book 5 was super drawn out with that circus stuff. There's a lot more court intrigue in this one, and then we get to see like the Black Tower stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Mazrim time, and we get to see the craziness. Like Rand is like legitimately starting to go fucking insane now.
Definitely. Yeah.
So much so that people are like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" So
Yeah.
he's actually physically manifesting his insanity where people can see it.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. So Lews Therin is right there. You get to see him commenting on mostly everything.
Yeah. There's especially that one part that I'm sure we'll talk about when we talk about the book, where that guy is delivering a message to him that the
Oh yeah,
Raja want to actually talk to him, and he just uses I think he uses the one power and just uses it to make him bleed from all of his orifices and bleed to death right there.
Yes, yeah, he's a messenger from Samael, and he's like, "Oh, let's have a truce."
Yeah.
And then Rand's like, "Fuck that," and then he kills the guy. The guy was probably compelled to do it, but yeah. And then later, I don't know if you read the chapter yet from the follow-up from Samael, where he's talking to the other dark friends, but he's completely delusional.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh yeah, he totally accepted my peace treaty."
Yeah.
It's like, fucking yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then the other Forsaken's like, "Oh no, he didn't accept it." And Samael's kind of like deluded and kind of so full of himself that he doesn't actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now that we got that out of the way, I'm not sure what to do for next week. I don't think I'm going to be done with this in a timely manner. Have you been able to set up anything about that with the BLM chat?
No, I'm working on it.
You're working on it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what movie did we talk about? I remember mentioning something.
Last what? You mean last week, or I know you mentioned?
I think it was last. I think it was. If it wasn't last week, it was this week. But I remember you're like, "Oh yeah, we should watch that or something."
I remember you mentioning another movie too, but I don't remember what it was.
I don't either. That's the problem. And I remember it was good. I was like, "You haven't seen that? Are you crazy?" That's kind of something I wanted you to watch.
It's not Idiocracy that you mentioned today.
Oh,
you're thinking of a
no, it wasn't Idiocracy that I mentioned today. It was a different movie.
Okay.
But we could definitely, if we can't figure out what that movie is, we could definitely do Idiocracy. But
it's probably in the video from last week where you mentioned it. I bet
it likely is, but I don't remember what it was. I'm guessing it was tangentially related to Robocop in some way, or maybe it was an 80s movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, I couldn't believe that you hadn't seen it. Oh, well. I have to write these things down next time. But I still can't believe you haven't seen Idiocracy, though.
Yeah, I should see it. One of those that I've heard highly recommended from everyone I know who's seen it, but I just haven't gotten around to watching it.
Yeah. Yeah, we could try that. I might even scour your video to find out what other movie it was that I said to check out.
It's probably at the end of our Robocop 1 chat.
It most likely is when we talked about planning. So I'll just take a look at the end of that, and then we'll see if we're going to either do Idiocracy or the movie I suggested last time.
And then after we do Lord of Chaos, we can do Renegade History of the United States, right?
Yeah, after Lord of Chaos, we could go do Renegade History. For sure. Well, yeah, that's the lineup. It may be Idiocracy next week, and it may be some other movie that I mentioned last week that I'll find out. Because I don't honestly think I can get 400 pages done in a week. I just don't think I can do it. I don't think I've ever. Well, I can't say I've never done it, but I don't want to read this so fast that I'm just skimming. I really want to ingest this stuff here. So, I don't know. I've been reading at least like 60, 40, sometimes it'll be 30 pages, sometimes it's 40 pages a day. So it would take me, if my rate is like 40 pages a day, it would take me like 10 days to get through this thing, like 2 weeks.
I read like
But, well,
120 to 150.
damn, man, that's too fast for me. Yeah, that's like super speed right there.
That's what happens when I only read one book at a time.
Why don't you just read 150 pages in a day?
Yeah.
Well, that probably happens to me with audiobooks. Like, probably going to take me 3 days to get through this book. And I'm guessing this was probably like an 800-page book or something.
There you go.
But, all right, man. So I guess we can start the wrap up.
All right. Yeah. So, yeah, I won't mention my plugs since this is technically on my channel anyway. But, yeah, I'll say all the stuff I like to say at the end of my videos here. So, thanks to everyone for watching this Mixed Mental Arts movie chat / Mindgasms movie chat about Robocop 2. Hope you like that movie. Hope you enjoyed us talking about it, and look forward to those next episodes that we were talking about, which are going to be on the Mixed Mental Arts channel, probably, because Dusty should be have those technical difficulties addressed by next week. And yeah, look forward to the other chats that we'll be doing on here soon. We're going to do more movie chats, and we're working on possibly that BLM chat that Dusty was talking about, and a few others as well. And thanks to all of those of you who subscribe to the channel, click the like button on the video, share it, comment on it, and especially to those of you who give me money on Patreon, which I always appreciate. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And Robocop 2 is awesome.
All right, and I'll just say sayonara, guys. See you guys next week.
And check out Mixed Mental Arts.
Yes, of course, that as well.
All right. Adios until next time, everyone.